Well, before we get to MBS, we've got the Foreign Office telling government officials not to use the term hostile state while describing China in case it upsets them.
Well, which it might well upset them, but we grovel to China all the time.
Yeah.
The principal way in which we do this is in all our lives. I think the last person in British journalism who refuses to do this is calling Peking, which is the old English name of the Chinese capital, calling it Beijing.
Right.
This was forced on British media, and we know because it came out. Oddly enough, in the Irish Times, I think that the Times of London was told by the Chinese if they didn't stop calling it Peking and start calling it Beijing, the Chinese Foreign Ministry would withdraw cooperation from the Times. Now, just imagine if the British Foreign Office called in the major French newspaper Le Monde and said, you can't call it Londres anymore, you've got to start calling it London, or we won't cooperate with you. You could hear the gales of laughter all across the channel. No one would take it. But the moment the Chinese put this kind of pressure on us, and in diplomacy they did the same thing, caved in.
Yes.
And
do you remember that?
It was a sign of how weak we were going to be from then on. This is why I refuse absolutely to call it Beijing. Yes. I call it Peking, and I'll carry on doing so. Do
you remember the conversation that took place at I think it was a NATO summit between President Xi and I think it was Trudeau or Macron, one of the two, I think, who was trying to have a conversation with them. And he just kind of waved it away and said, no, you shouldn't be saying this. This is not the time. There was basically a sort of protocol issue. And President Xi just kind of dismissed it and walked away. Do you remember that? It was sometime in the last few months.
I don't remember, but it's just, it's a really strange country. You remember the occasion at the Great Congress of People's Deputies, or whatever it's called, the other day, when a senior official was just ushered off the stage.
Oh, yeah, they sort of tapped him on the shoulder.
A major figure in the Chinese Politburo. He's just taken away. As if
never seen again.
Never seen again. And the taken away and never seen again fate is quite common in China. It really is one of the most sinister countries you've ever come. And yet we still don't really treat it with any kind of mistrust. It's really strange.
As is Saudi Arabia.
Well, in Saudi Arabia's case, you can see what's going on. And we really, really want their money. We want them to buy stuff from us. We want them to invest in this country. They've bought huge numbers of British weapons and military equipment. You can see why.
Well, they're one of the main purchases, I think, of our defence.
To grovel up to a point, though I think we probably grovel more than is necessary, sending out senior members of the royal family to hobnob with the Saudi leadership. But since the extraordinary Khashoggi incident, where this Saudi dissident was actually somehow or other gulled into going into a Saudi consulate in Turkey and there murdered and dismembered, and the CIA, who one assumes have ways of knowing this, are pretty certain that the current Saudi leader was how should we put this, at least aware of these events. Since then, we've continued to have. And
the men who were supposed to have carried out the dismembering and the murder have also kind of disappeared.
Well, but they wouldn't want them talking to anybody, would they? But here's the thing, and we quite rightly get very exercised about the way in which the Russian government murders people. Polonium, Novichok. And we treat Russia with contempt because it invades Ukraine. Well, Saudi Arabia has taken part in what could be described as an invasion of Yemen as well. Here is a contrast. Here is one leader who's associated with really wicked acts, whom we treat with utter contempt, won't talk to, and regard as a pariah state, and another who's welcome here on an official visit, where he may well meet the king. I don't know; it hasn't been stated in October. Honestly, you can do one or the other. You can say, as we do, we are a country which is so seriously committed to democracy and the rule of law and good behaviour on the international stage, we will have nothing to do with people who behave in this fashion.
Right. Is there any room for...
Or you don't.
Well, is there not any room, though, for sort of diplomatic niceties, if you like, which are unpleasant for most right-thinking people, but which are necessary for governments?
No, I think it's a straightforward either or. You cannot pose as a moral preacher while simultaneously shaking the hands of bloodstained regimes. You can shake the hand. I could quite see, I understand the nature of our being an increasingly poor and less powerful country. I can understand why you don't hear Belgium or Austria doing much condemnation of other countries, do you?